Cambridge students, can you one by one unmute yourself and introduce yourself, tell them a bit about your name, what subject you're studying, what year you're in, just to begin. Thank you. Ray and Nisa, do you want to go first?
Okay, sure, yes. Hi, I'm Ray Hanisa, or Ray. I'm in my 4th year of studies. So I joined as a natural sciences student, doing biology. So in my 3rd year, I specialised in plant sciences. But I did a little bit of a switch this year. It's still technically natural sciences, but it's a humanities degree. So I'm doing an integrated master's, and it's on history and philosophy of science. So that is one route that you could take if you take natural sciences. But yeah, lovely to meet you all and looking forward to the questions.
Ahmed?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ahmed. I'm a 3rd year doing chemical engineering, but in my 1st year I did physical natural sciences, so physics, chemistry and material science.
Thank you. Shala?
Hello everyone, I'm Shala and I'm a 3rd year student studying Anglo-Saxon, Northern Celtic, or as we like to call it, and it's basically a study of medieval history, languages and literatures.
Thank you. Lorena?
Hi, I'm Lorena. I'm a 3rd year HSPS student, short for Human, Social and Political Sciences, but I came into Cambridge studying psychological and behavioural sciences before switching in 2nd year.
And finally, Naomi.
Hello, I'm Naomi. I'm a 1st year education student. Yeah, I haven't been here that long, only this is my 2nd term. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far, and I welcome like any questions that you guys have.
Thank you. And we should be having 2 more students joining us who are just trying to join at the minute. A medicine student and a law student. I know that a few of you asked to meet one of those as well. So,
hi Lindsay, I'm in. Sorry, I'm just waiting at a bus stop. But hello, I'm Solania. I'm a 3rd year lawyer.
If you're able to turn your camera on, that would be great. Otherwise, that's okay.
Yay.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're gonna get started. So Silania is a law student, but is kind of on her way. Oh, and we've got Lois as well. Lois, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell them what subject you're studying?
Yes, hi, sorry, I had so many technical difficulties, but I'm Lois, I'm a 5th year medic.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got lots of questions already. Just for Lois and Silania, the questions are not coming through the chat or the Q&A on here because we've had to disable those for safeguarding because Teams is a bit weird, but it means that they're all coming through on Slido and I'm going to read them out. What preparation do you wish you had done or other things you wish you had known about before you went to Cambridge? Any student can feel free to unmute themselves and answer that.
I think 2 things I say for law a lot, sorry, there I am, is very practical things in that either typing really fast or reading very fast and like skim reading and knowing that because there's a lot of reading to do. But also, at least for subject law, just keeping up to date on what's going on around the world and the country, especially your local town, especially like your little area, is really helpful because it really engages you with the rest of the world and can connect difficult legal concepts to practical realities. So yeah, those are the 3 things. Learn how to type pretty quickly, read quite fast, but that's easy, that's just sight reading, and then keep up to date on what's going on the rest of the world.
Thank you. And any other tips from the students?
So I always say this, but have a look at like all the different degrees that Cambridge has to offer, Cambridge, Oxford, or wherever you're going to apply, because at least with Cambridge, they have a lot of degrees that aren't actually available anywhere else. And because I didn't properly do my research, I came into Cambridge studying psychology, then took some optional papers in HSPS and realized, hey, actually, I really enjoy this. And if I'd done the research probably a bit better, then I could have just gone straight into HSBS rather than kind of faffing about a bit in a degree that I didn't like that much. So yeah, that's my main piece of advice. Just do research on all your different options.
I think we'll move on to the next question just because there are quite a lot. This one is for Lois. What does a typical week look like for a medical student?
Okay, so this varies a lot based on the year that you're in. But in terms of first year, typically your mornings are normally quite full from like 9 till about lunchtime with lectures, practicals, being in the dissection room. So those afternoons those mornings are often full Monday to Friday. And then in the afternoons it can vary. So sometimes you'll have more practicals or supervisions in the afternoon. In first year, you normally have about 3 supervisions a week. And so that'll be sat down with one of your supervisors that the college arranges to go through your essays or questions that they've set you the week before normally. And then you have a few other kind of random bits of like seminars for ethics, for example, and things like that. So yeah, I think that is pretty much a typical week for a first year.
Thank you. There's actually a lot of questions for you, Lois, but just to vary a bit, I might go to some other ones first. Lorena, what would you say is the key difference between HSPS and economics?
So I've never studied economics, so I probably won't be able to give you a big answer on that, but I can give a brief overview of what HSPS is, and then that can sort of give you the sort of differences. So with HSPS, it's 1 degree, but you study 3 subjects. You study sociology, politics, and social anthropology, and you do a general approach to all of those subjects. You do 2 politics papers in first year, 1 sociology paper in first year, and then 1 social anthropology paper. And then from there, you get to specialize either in a dual track or a single track. So you could do criminology and politics, you could do sociology and social anthropology. I, for example, specialized in sociology, so I only take sociology papers. And yeah, so I guess that, I don't know if that will answer your question, but if I'm correct, economics is kind of more maths based, more law based, whereas I guess HSPS is very social sciences. You're studying society, how it works. You're looking at how society has become what it is today. And yeah, almost also what's wrong with society today.
Thank you. There's loads of questions coming in. At the minute, there's about 25. So I think what we'll do is I'll get 1 student to answer each question each time. And so there's some that are like this that are targeted at particular students, and the ones that are not, I might just call on another student so that you'll get a chance to talk. If you could do anything differently within your application or Freshers Week, what would it be? Maybe Naomi.
I think it's really important. There are so many societies out there. I think it's important to try a bit of everything. I think that's what I regret not doing, is not going and trying everything that's on offer, because Cambridge provides so much, not just within your own college, but also university-wide. I think it's also important to go, because it also helps with making friends from other colleges, because my subject, education, is usually, because I'm at Homerton and my lessons are all within the education faculty. So it's quite difficult to make friends from other colleges, but through societies, I've had a chance to make friends, and it also helps because you can go and visit their colleges as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, that's something that I would do. Yeah, just keep an open mind. And don't also, in Freshers Week, don't feel like you have to go out every night. There are people that like to stay in and do other things as well, and that's how you find your friends. You find people who have the same interests as you, so don't feel like any pressure to go out every night. Yeah.
I'm going to go to Sharla. So the question is, what does a typical day look like for each of you? But we've had Lois give us a sort of STEM typical day and typical week. So maybe Charlotte, if you can give us a typical day in an arts or humanities student life.
Yeah. So my course is Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, which is basically a study of medieval languages, histories and literature. So we do a bit of everything. And I think if you just do something like English, then you would just mostly have lectures like maybe 2-3 times a week, depending on your schedule. And then you would have weekly supervisions. But with ASNAC, it's different because we do languages as well. So alongside lectures and supervisions, we also have language classes where you basically go in a class, you get set a piece of translation and then you translate in class and you discuss it. And then lectures are pretty much sitting in a room of, I don't know, 100, 200 people. But again, because ASNAC is so small, our lectures are like only 40 people. So it's quite small. It feels more like a sort of class rather than a lecture. But I think it's mostly independent work, whereas with the sciences, it's mostly going to the lab and doing those sorts of things. Whereas with humanities, it's more about your own research and like doing supervisions. And I think what my sort of week consisted was mostly doing the supervision essay and doing the translation, which I think is probably similar to all of the humanities subjects.
Thank you. This question is for Ahmed. When you applied for natural sciences, did you already know you wanted to switch into chemical engineering?
Yeah, so I did apply for chemical engineering via natural sciences. The way the course used to work is you had to do your first year is either natural sciences or general engineering. And I applied for doing that via natural sciences. That's not to say, however, that I was 100% sure that I was going to switch, because you have a bit of an opportunity to stay on to natural sciences sort of thing. But it doesn't work quite like that anymore. But when I did apply, yeah, I did think I was going to switch for chemical engineering, but there were definitely times in first year where I was like, oh, I'm enjoying natural sciences a bit more from physics, but I ended up sticking to chemical engineering in the end.
Thank you. I might fire a few questions at you, Lois. There's a lot of medicine questions. Firstly, is it possible to combine medicine with high-level sport? This is about swimming, or are the terms just too intensive?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to do that. I know a lot of people, not speaking from experience, but I know a lot of people who do blue sports whilst doing medicine or veterinary medicine. Yes, a lot of my friends, like my housemate, for example, who's a 5th year medic, she was on the Blues tennis team for 4 years, for example. So it is definitely possible. I think you shouldn't let the course kind of put you off from doing any extracurriculars, to be honest. The best kind of strategies that people go for is just you commit to what you want to do, and you just work around it, because otherwise it would be very easy to just not do anything for the whole time and only study, and that's the same for all courses, to be honest. But yeah, you should do whatever you want to do, whether it's sport or any other like extracurricular. So
Thank you. Do you think the medical course is good for teaching clinical medicine?
So of course, like the Cambridge course is split up into preclinical and clinical. So now that I'm a clinical medic, I can say it definitely does teach clinical medicine very well. It's just that you don't get to that point until 4th year. But the way that the teaching works before that, it's very much about getting that kind of basis and broad knowledge, which really does make a difference when you are clinical and you are in the hospital, and you know, there's a whole kind of thing of working things out from first principles, which is kind of the point of the way that the course is designed. So it definitely is good at teaching clinical medicine. the clinical school are very involved. They are always trying to look to improve the teaching as well. There is a lot of teaching in clinical. Your terms are a lot longer. And yeah, no, overall, I mean, in my experience, it's been really good.
Thank you. Do you think the essay portion of the work is beneficial for medicine? I'm not quite sure what that question is. And then there's a question about the average UCAT score, if there is one.
Yeah, okay, so in terms of essays, they are, I would say they are useful and they are important for medicine, because for a few reasons. First of all, you know, medicine is also quite academic, and you know, you need to be in your career as a doctor, you'll be writing papers and things like that. So first of all, that kind of style of writing is really useful. And then also it really does test your knowledge, and it really makes sure that you understand all these different concepts by writing an essay, because sometimes you'll start writing an essay and realize you have no idea what's actually going on. Whereas if you did, then you wouldn't know. And then, sorry, I can't remember what the other question was.
Well, how did you prepare for the UCAT, and what's the average score, if there's an average score?
So when I was applying, BMAT was still a thing, but I also did do the UCAT. So in terms of average scores, I honestly have no idea what Cambridge will use or what they want. But what I will say is my BMAT score wasn't anything special. Like, it was, you know, it wasn't amazing 100%. So that's the first thing, that you can definitely have a school that's not in the top decile and still be given an interview, because they are very holistic and they like to interview lots of people from because it's not just about a UCAT score. So that's the first thing. And in terms of preparing, I think I just did loads of practice questions again and again and again. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I don't think there's much else you can do to prepare for it, unfortunately. But yeah, don't get too hung up on it, because it's only one tiny part of an application. And actually there's a lot of other important things that they consider. So
I'll move away from the medicine questions for a bit. I'm gonna ask Ray and Issa, how hard did you find A-levels or post-16 in general?
That's such a good question. I actually really hated A-levels. not the best 2 years of my life in my experience. They were actually some of the worst. I found A-levels particularly difficult because you've got so much pressure, and it's so much work as well. So it sucks. So I empathize with you guys. But it gets better. And university is so much better than A-levels. I think the thing is, you get so caught up in, you know, in sort of like the A-levels is kind of last hurdle before you go to university, and I think that can make learning really boring and really difficult. So one thing that I would recommend doing, one thing that really helped me get through A-levels, is kind of stepping back from A-levels, like looking at biology, which is a subject I was interested in, through an A-levels lens, and looking at it in real world applications, and what's new in biology. I mean, that was also partly because for my personal statement, it really helps to do that, but also just generally kind of trying to think about it less in academic way necessarily, but more of like, you know, why is it that I want to study this subject in the first place? Because I think so often you'll forget why you want to do the subject, or you'll realize that you're kind of faking your enthusiasm because you kind of have to. So it can drain you, but it gets better. And yeah, hang in there and look after your mental health as well.
Thank you. On that note, there's a question I'm going to ask Ahmed. Can you share your experience with the teaching style and support available for students at Cambridge?
Yep. So the teaching style differs a bit from when you're in school. So it in school you're more being told what to do, you're being chased up on it, even during A levels, which I have to say were an okay experience for me. But Rehanisa is right in that it gets more enjoyable the more like choice you have, and maybe for some people with A levels that's still not narrow enough in terms of subjects. But the teaching style here is a bit more on you, so you've got to really push yourself to go ahead and like complete all your work, to do that further bit of research. You know, nobody's going to be chasing your like, why haven't you done your homework as such. You need to put in all the effort, you know, if you want to get that. And I suppose that's a little bit of a big expectation, but everybody sort of goes through that, and you all will sort of learn how to do that reasonably well, how to make sure you're looking after your mental health whilst also putting in a dedicated amount of time for your work. But also in terms of support, the university runs help sessions with how to study skill sessions, as well as the college itself. And you have a director of studies, or a DOS, and they're in charge of overlooking all your work and supervisions and things. But you can go to them if you are particularly struggling with one subject or whatnot. And then in addition to that, you also have a tutor who's there for all the pastoral things that you might need, separate from your work, but it can also be related to that if you'd like. So there is a lot of support available. It does just take a little bit of getting used to, because it is very different from a school environment. But yeah.
Thank you. Just because there's a million questions coming in, I'm going to ask people to be really short and sweet with their answers. Not trying to be mean at all. What is the accommodation like for students, Shala?
Yes, I think Homerton has one of the best accommodations out of all the colleges. And I think the nice thing about Homerton is that all first year students go into a building called West House, and it is ensuite, so you have your own bathroom, and in the room you have a desk, you have a bed. And I think that's one of the nice things about Homerton, is that you actually live on site. So you've got the library, which is in front of West House, you've got the Great Hall or the New Hall where you can eat. And I think it's really nice as all the accommodation is on site and en suite.
Thank you. Naomi, can you describe the atmosphere and sense of community within your college? And there's another question as well, why did you choose Homerton? So I don't know if you chose Homerton, maybe you can answer both of those. If you didn't, then don't answer that one.
Well, I chose Homerton. I decided to apply to it. When I came on the open day, I just got such a good feel from it. It's known as being one of the friendliest colleges, and I think that is definitely true. There's like a real community feel. And the HUS, which is the Homerton Union of Students, they're really good at putting on loads of events. We have like BOP in the Great Hall, and that sort of brings people together. There's also a really strong like support network. We have like a whole space for people to just chill out, our JCR, and it's just a place where students can also come together and take a break from their academic work. And I think that's really important at Cambridge, because you're sometimes so like into your work that you need to take a break. But Homerton is definitely, yeah, it really does feel like home.
Thank you. Got a question for Silania, if you're still with us. What did you find beneficial when preparing for the LNAT?
So when I applied, we didn't have to do the LNAT, and that was why I chose Cambridge over Oxford. So I do feel a bit cheated, but I did not write the LNAT, unfortunately.
Okay. I've got another quick question for you. What is a really good super curricular to do for law? Sorry, that was still for you, Silania. That's fine.
Sorry, I just got out of the bus. Sorry. Okay. so chaotic. I'm sorry. Super curricular. It depends really. There's so many people doing sports. There's people doing other things. I was head of our May Ball committee, which is like a big event we do. The best thing is to do what you like, and that makes it so much easier because law at Cambridge is a very, very stressful subject, and you want to do extracurriculars that make you happy, make you relax. So if that's a sport, go do it. If that's other societies, music, drama, theatre, there's so much in Cambridge for you to do. But obviously, if you have a more work focus, you want to focus on that. There's Moots to do, there's mock trials, there's every company you can think of coming to talk almost every week. So it really depends on what you want to do. I'd say don't come in thinking you want to do one thing, because that really narrows your options. But really just go for it. Come here, go for everything you potentially can go, because most of them are free, and then decide what you want to do.
Thank you. I think the question, so that's really good, really helpful to know what you might be doing at Cambridge. The question, if it was about supercurriculars before, then I'd recommend looking at a page on our website called Resources, and you can click on law and find lots of stuff there. Lorena, what tips would you give for living at university? Things that you don't think you need but are very helpful.
It's more not about something you have, but budgeting, financial skills. I was lucky that from a young age, my family taught me like make sure that you buy your essentials, make sure you have like food, toiletries, etc. before then you kind of start putting money towards like going out for meals, etc. So I think having good financial skills and budgeting skills, or just being prepared to learn that, is one really good thing for university. And one thing that I don't think I could do university without is maybe just having, it's once again, it's not really something that you bring with you, but just having like a hobby, something on the side. It doesn't have to be an extracurricular thing. But yeah, that's just sort of something that's always good to have. And I guess a sort of non-academic skill that you can have to relax while you're here at uni.
Thank you. Rainy, sir, is there a lot of work set for the holidays?
So you don't get what you, for natural sciences, you typically, you might get work set for the holidays, but that would usually be like one essay per supervisor maybe, or they might let you off. But that's not to say that you don't have any work to do over the holidays. It's not like school where, you know, you have homework in the same way. It's more so that so the way the Cambridge year works is it's split into 3 terms, and they're quite short terms. They're only 8 weeks, and they're quite intensive as well. Intensive in the sense that you can't really do revision as well as learning, so the revision portion gets left to do during the holidays. So you've got all the flexibility to do as much or as little work as you want. But yes, you are expected to do some level of work during the holidays, and you might have an essay or 2 to write, or an example question to answer.
Thank you. Ahmed, what made you pick Cambridge?
I think I always knew that it was always a dream of mine to go here, but I think what really made me pick it is I thought about the degree at which I wanted to study my subject, and I looked at the course and I quite liked it. I looked at the course at other universities, I also liked them, and I also applied to them, but I picked Cambridge in the end because I really wanted to try and push myself as much as I could.
Thank you. Lois, what's the average workload for medicine, and also any recommended supercurriculars?
So average workload. I feel very removed from first year, to be honest. So it's kind of hard to answer. I would say, I think typically, I mean, it's probably
I don't know. So you have like in first year you'll have like 3 main supervisors. So there's typically an essay a week for them, and you'll also have to do some reading and preparation for the supervision. So that might be a few hours for each, as in like 2 or 3, and then or less depending on how efficient you are. And then you have all of the things that you have to go to, and then. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of like the core workload in first year. And then in terms of supercurriculars, I think it's definitely very flexible with what's useful. Things key for medicine are anything where you interact with people and have to work with people different to you, whether that's in a shop or in a care home or anything like that. And I mean, it's really about kind of transferable skills and just having a general clear interest in the subject. And yeah.
Thank you. Sharla, are supervisions scary at first?
I think that's maybe like a common misconception. And I think supervisions are really a time for you to go in and ask questions and discuss like subject matter that one person has spent their whole life like researching. And I think it depends on your subject, because usually most subjects have like 3 or 4 people in a supervision, but with ASNAC is 1-to-1. And maybe at first I was a bit scared. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be with like a person who has researched a subject for like so long. But I think once you go in, you actually sort of feel in a way proud that you could like actually discuss something so important with an expert. And I think it's really a time for you to go in and basically I was going to say go in and shine, but like go in and discover what you're really interested in.
Thank you. Naomi, how do students typically manage their workload and balance academic and extracurricular activities?
I like to dedicate a day to I like to methodically like sort of work through my workload. So with the readings, I tend to do them all in the mornings before my lectures, so then it's fresh in my mind. So I wake up early quite a lot during the weekdays. So I get my reading done in the morning. It's fresh in my mind. So when I go to lectures, I'm able to really engage with the content, and I find that really helps for me. And then after my lectures, I tend to take a little bit of a break and then do my essay after that. Because especially if it's based on something within the lecture, again, it's fresh in your mind, you've got the critique, you understand the content well. So that's what I try and do. I also think it's really important to take a break as well. Like, you can't just be constantly working. And you often find that you're more efficient as well if you take a break, then come back to your work later. Because I row in the mornings, so I wake up very early, cycle to the boathouse, and then come back. So I'm all awake like already. And we usually have like races on the weekends. So I think it's just important to find out what works for you, and it will be different depending on what subject you do and the amount of like content and reading you have to get through.
Thank you. Rayanisa, what are your top tips for an interview?
My top tips for an interview: practice speaking about your subject out loud to anyone. It doesn't have to be interview style. It can just be like, hey, I read this interesting thing about, I don't know, gene editing. Can I tell you about it? So just practice speaking out loud about the topic. Secondly, read around the topic. But I mean, I think people often stress kind of like extracurricular reading, but it's not that useful in the interview. What's more useful is knowing your A-level content. They try not to go beyond A-level content. What they will do though is use your knowledge that you do have and apply it to an unfamiliar scenario. So kind of perhaps practicing that sort of exercise in your mind as well. But honestly, the most accessible and easiest way to practice for an interview is to just talk about the subject you're applying for out loud.
Thank you. Sulanya, what opportunities are there for undergraduate research or internships within your field of study? I guess like it's a broad question, it's not aimed at you.
At least for law. So the career drive at Cambridge is pretty focused, especially for law. They start early, they start young. But you don't have to, like, you can fully, because you've got 3 years. Your first year is just a year for you to get settled, and then your second and third year counts for your degree. You can look for internships in first year, and that's completely fine. They're called I can't remember what they're called, but they're called vacation schemes and spring weeks. And these are obviously firm based, and so they're not something the university offers. They're something you apply to, and you get from firms either in London or anywhere in the UK, but law firms. And then in second and third year, you can obviously apply for what we call VAC schemes, which are the law version of internships. Very competitive, very hard to get, but there is a lot of career support available, and people in general are happy to like talk to you and help you around. In terms of the internship, if you are like from university, if you're very interested in academic research, there's a lot of supervisors who look around for like summer assistants. We've got a lot of different legal like buildings. There's a Centre for Private International Law, there's a Centre for Intellectual Property, the law faculty hires research assistants, and so there's a lot of scope there for academia interests as well. So I think it's very well balanced. The Law Society is one of the biggest societies we have in Cambridge, and they throw very regular careers events to really shape you all up for interview prep, etc., which is very nice. But you hear a lot of things about it. The most important thing is to go on your own timeline. But there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Thank you. Ahmed, what support systems are in place within the college for students' well-being and mental health? And I think there's another question about how accessible are professors and academic resources for students who need extra help or guidance. They're kind of different questions, but you can probably talk about them.
So in terms of welfare resources, there is a lot of resources, both at a college level and a university level. So at college level, you have, like I mentioned before, the tutor who's there to talk about all pastoral things. You've got you've got a student health advisor, you've got a college counsellor, you've got a dedicated mental health nurse at the college. You've also got senior tutor, wellbeing assistant. There are a huge range of people there for you to go talk to. And at a university level as well, you've got university counselling service, student advice service, and things, which, especially with the student advice service, I think that's what it's called, you can talk to them about anything you need. Academically, you also have a student support document, which is there to make your learning more accessible from a disability point of view. And in terms of extra help, if you're struggling with the content, just from purely an academic point of view, then your supervisors are there for you to email, even outside of supervisions. Supervisors are a very, very good resource to have. And yeah.
Thank you. Lorena, there's a lot of questions about preparing for the application process, building supercurricular activities, and writing your personal statement. Do you want to give some advice on that?
Yes, so the one thing I will say is that where the Oxbridge application and kind of other university applications differ is that with an Oxbridge application, they're less interested in your extracurricular activities unless it's sort of related to your degree. So I found that kind of focusing on what like I was learning in A levels, but also like what sort of additional research I was doing around my subject. They kind of want to see how dedicated you are to your subject. It is good, obviously, maybe to mention like a line or two on something that you do outside of studying, but I would say that when you reply, it is very much focused on this is the degree, this is why I like it, this is why I would be a good candidate, etc. So yeah, I think, yeah, just bear that in mind, that there is that kind of difference between an Oxbridge UCAS application and the kind of, I guess, alternative universities. Although I do believe that with I don't know if it's still the same now, but when we applied, we had like a separate like SAQ. I don't know if the name has changed now, but then there was like
the Cambridge application.
Yes, so you get, once you've sent off your UCAS application, you do get like an additional bit of space to be able to write about anything that you couldn't mention in your statement. You could have mentioned like any extracurricular activities or just anything else there.
Thank you. Renisa, how does your college foster a sense of belonging and inclusivity among its diverse student body?
I think Homerton is one of the most diverse colleges in Cambridge. It's also 70% state school. So I think the people that you see around you, they just the demographic of Homerton is quite diverse. You'll meet people from all over the country, from different parts of the world, from different, and we also offer all the subjects. So you'll have the chance to meet people studying all the subjects in Cambridge. How does it foster an inclusive environment? Well, so we have in loads of ways. So there are loads of events, sort of like culture specific events. I mean, there was a Diwali event that the Homerton Union of Students organised. So there's a student body, student representative body, and included in them is a BME officer, which Lorena used to be, and they will host events related to BME stuff. There's also, I mean, our principal's really great at advocating for this as well. I mean, there are so many. Like, I think it's so ingrained within the Homerton culture that it's difficult to really pinpoint what exactly it. I think you'll definitely feel that. I think one of the biggest things that people feel when they come to Homerton is that sense of belonging and that friendliness. So yeah, nothing to worry about. But I have to go now. But yes,
Okay.
thank you for the question.
Thank you. Question for Sulania. I'm going to try and combine a few. How theoretical versus practical is the course? What is your favourite area of the course? And a typical day or week? Maybe typical day is easier. Sulania.
Oh, sorry, was that for me? Okay.
Yes, sorry, that was for
typical
you.
day in the life. So as I remember Rainey was saying before, it's an 8-week term, and so we have per module cycles of 2 weeks. So you get 4 supervisions per module. And what I like to do is necessarily organize my week according to the number of supervisions I have, because at least for law, it is your supervisions that you have the majority of reading for. You submit an essay for 2 per term. But then we have about 10, 12 lectures a week. Some start at 9, some start at 10, some start at 1. They are brilliant. But if you want to go to lectures, they are recorded. You go to lectures. If not, you start your supervision prep. Supervisions are hours long, and they are usually what everybody focuses on. Sorry, Lindsay, can you remind me of the other 2 questions?
The other 2 were, is it more practical or theoretical? And what is your favourite area of law that you've done so far?
Favorite area of law is definitely international. I took a paper in international law last year, which was very, very nice. It was very relevant to what was going on as well. And Cambridge usually in 3rd year especially focuses a lot on commercial and like the business side of law. But then in 2nd and 1st year, there's a lot more nuance and flexibility in choosing what you want. How the course works is in 1st year, you get 4 mandatory subjects. In 2nd year, you get to choose 3 modules out of the 5 that you do. And it's the same for your 3rd year. In 3rd year, you get to pick between a dissertation, another full paper, and then 2 half papers if you want to. But in total, you do 5 modules for your 2nd and 3rd year, and that counts as 50-50. I'd say it's a nice balance between philosophy, as in theory, and practicalities. If you look at the papers I'm doing this year, I do a paper in equity, which is mandatory, unfortunately, but it's very, very theoretical. It's about trust law in England. Extremely boring, very, very legal theory. But then it's counteracted by a paper I do in intellectual property and conflicts of law, which is like international, how law and jurisdiction works, which is extremely practical. You have barristers that are practicing come and talk to you about how their practice works. They usually lecture. So there's a very nice balance between the papers you do, and most of the papers also link around, so there's aspects of both. I do know that Cambridge, particularly compared to Oxford, is a lot more practical in how they approach their paper. There's a lot of practice included in modules. I think as an institution, it's got a long way to go in terms of third world law and how it includes colonial countries, how it includes the third world aspect of it, and that's a conversation we can have later. But in terms of legal theory, they do have a very good grounding of it.
Thank you. Few questions about EPQs. I think for Ahmed, is an EPQ worth doing if you're already doing 4 A-levels, and then EPQ or competitions, which is better, and then work experience for engineering?
So I didn't do an EPQ, but I did do 4 A-levels, and I can say that focusing on those A-levels more than the EPQ is definitely, I think, a better option, because yes, an EPQ shows special interest in certain topics, but just focusing on your A-levels really helps. You know, there are grade requirements that you will need to meet, and they're sort of one of the first barriers that you will have in terms of an application. But then it also helps you figure out whether this subject is something that you actually do want to study further. So definitely, I'd say focus more on the A-levels. Work experience, I didn't have any relevant work experience to engineering. I just had some sort of voluntary tutoring and some teaching assistant experience. But once again, work experience is something that you're more likely to get once you're actually in university, which you can do in the summer, and you can get summer internships in your later years. Yeah.
Thank you. Sharla, how does the college system contribute to the overall student experience at Cambridge?
I think your college is really important because obviously that's the place where you basically come home after like lectures, seminars, or like supervisions, and there's like loads of college events. So I think, as we mentioned before, that there are a lot of like welfare events. You've got like origami, arts and crafts. I think there's also like something called college bops, which basically they bring in a DJ and it's a night where you basically dance and there's some nice music. And yeah, I think really colleges are really important, and that's basically where most of your social life is, other than like outside, obviously.
Thank you. Lois, is the city lively enough to study in for 6 years?
Good question. I actually think it is, to be honest. I mean, a lot of students actually stay for their foundation years as well, if that's any kind of indication that they're ready to stay for longer. I mean, the thing is, in your first 3 years, you actually spend, your terms are so short that actually more of your year is spent out of Cambridge than in Cambridge if you're just, only there for the terms. So I think that also helps. And then kind of clinical is so different, and you kind of go on regional placement and stuff like that as well. So actually you end up being quite grateful to still be in Cambridge and really making the most of it. And also when your friends graduate, they love coming back as well. So it's definitely lively enough to be in for 6 years. Yeah.
Thank you. Lorena, how is neurodivergent support at Cambridge?
So I actually I can speak from the perspective of someone who didn't have diagnoses and then got diagnosed at Cambridge. So in terms of neurodiverse support, in terms of financial support, there's quite a lot. So first of all, at Homerton, we have the Disabilities Expenses Fund. So this is a pot of money. You get up to £30 per term to use on disability related expenses. So for example, I use this to fund my ADHD medication, but you could also use this on sensory aid. So for example, I need to wear ear defenders. So that's something that can be purchased on that. It can be used for taxis if you have energy limiting conditions. It can be used for food delivery if you're unable to go food shopping. And on top of that, Cambridge was very, very supportive, once again, financially, in terms of being able to help students get diagnoses. So I've always had a lot of difficulties in education, but I've never been able to get a diagnosis. But thankfully at Cambridge, first of all, Homerton was able to fund me getting an initial assessment for ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. So they organised that, and then they funded it for me. And then, sorry for the background noise. Just give me a second. So then on top of that, I was able to reach out to university-wide support through the Cranes Fund. This is a pot of medical money. And through this, I was able to get a full assessment for autism and ADHD. And so then once I had those diagnoses, Cambridge was really, really supportive. You get a student support document, which is sent to your lecturers and supervisors, which is basically a document. It details all your support needs that they need to abide by in terms of supervisions. And there's also, in terms of accommodation in college, there's support. There's disability, specific disability rooms that you'll be entitled to if you're disabled. And there is also, in terms of accommodation, if you need like a quiet space, college can also support that.
Thank you. Ahmed, there's a question from somebody saying, no one from my school has gotten into Oxbridge. Does that mean it's not worth applying? And I think a similar question, are there any stereotypes that people think about Cambridge?
So stereotypes, I guess, from what I thought about it was, before I came here, I thought, how am I going to be able to afford this? How am I going to, like, is it going to be people who are not like me at all, who are different? Is it going to be all privately educated? And I can say with confidence that all of those stereotypes were wrong. And in terms of finance, the university does help with finance, and as well, the more you get to know about student finance, the easier it is. So you do get help with doing that, and the university offers bursaries as well. Sorry, I forgot what the
other one
first
was
question.
nobody from their school has ever got into Oxbridge. Is it worth applying?
Yes. Yeah. They do look at all the data. They do do a holistic application approach. So they look at this, they take that into account, and realize that it might be more of a challenge due to certain schools that people haven't gotten in from that before. But very few people, maybe one person a year, would get in at my school. Sometimes none, but yeah, you should still 100% try, because you'll never know if you don't try.
Thank you. Naomi, is it more challenging to get involved in university-wide things at Homerton since it's less central? Do you feel less included or involved as a student?
No, I don't think it is. I think, yes, the cycle is a little bit annoying, but it gets you your exercise. So I think it's just planning, because it does take a little bit longer rather than if you were like directly in the centre. But it's just planning ahead, leaving that extra 10 minutes early, because it doesn't take long to actually cycle in. And sometimes it's quite nice, because you leave like Homerton behind, you go to somewhere else, like a society or an event or something, and then you've got a nice cycle back. The cold definitely wakes you up. Yeah, but I don't think it makes you feel sort of like left out or on the outside. We quite like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Lorena, what are the formals and balls for? Are they as elegant and fun as they appear?
So I can speak more about formals because I've only been to one ball. I will say that the balls are not for everyone. So at the end of exams, we have this thing called May Week, and it's basically a bunch of really extravagant parties, basically from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. That is not for me. I am someone who likes to go to bed early. However, it is a once in a lifetime event. I went to one in my first year, and it was an insane experience. I would never be able to go to like a ball again. And in terms of formals, I prefer formals. And what's really nice about Homerton is that we have formals only once a week. But because they're only once a week, there's quite a bit more effort put into them compared to like other colleges where they have formals every day and they sort of just end up using the catering foods that they gave students for like lunch or dinner. And so yeah, I've like, what's crazy about formals is I know that outside of Cambridge I'll never be somewhere like where you're served a 3-course meal, you go in black tie, you wear a gown. So yeah, both formals and balls, both very extravagant things in Cambridge, and just something you'll never experience outside of that environment, and really worth it.
Thank you. Lois, did you have any work experience for medicine? And if so, how useful did you find it? And then how do you manage the competitive environment?
Yeah, so I'm in terms of work experience, my case is probably a bit more unique because I got work experience before deciding I wanted to apply to medicine. So I happened to get work experience in a hospital in year 12 summer, and thinking that I didn't want to do medicine, and then that made me decide that I did. So for me it was extremely useful, but also, so I got that kind of by chance through applying to a scheme in my local area. You know, they are aware when you're applying that it can be very difficult to get experience in hospitals, and some areas are really good. So Addenbrookes like have a work experience scheme, whereas other hospitals just don't. So they do know that. So it's not something that's essential. However, I would say it is very useful if you can get something, or at like a GP or something like that as well, because, you know, ultimately it is a very unique environment being in somewhere clinical. So it is useful for informing you if it is something that you want to do. But also, you know, there's a lot of other things that are important for that as well. And yeah, in terms of the competitive environment, I think that at least Cambridge medicine for me is, it's not, Cambridge really hadn't fostered quite a competitive environment compared to other universities. I remember going to an Imperial offer holder day, and they really kind of focused on how they like to make it competitive between the year, which I really didn't like. Cambridge is not like that for me at all. I know lots of people who share their notes. You know, we so our exams this year, for example, we're not actually the pass mark isn't set against each other. It's a different method of setting it. So essentially it means that people are very open, they like to help each other out, they like to share. I haven't found it to be a kind of a toxic competitive environment at all.
Thank you. Just to say, we have come to the end of this. If anyone needs to go at this point, you can go. If people do want to stay on, there are still some questions, so we will keep doing them for a bit if people are okay with that. I'm interested in starting to work out and exercise more while at university. What options to do this are there at Cambridge? Who wants to answer that? I don't want to make assumptions about who does more or less exercise.
Well, the Homerton gym, as far as I know, is free, right? So that's one thing that's very easy if you're living in college, is that you can easily go and access the gym. Then further to that, if you want something a bit more fun and interactive for exercise, you have college sport. So this is much more low commitment. You can dip in and out of it. And so that's quite a nice way to get involved in becoming a bit more active. Being at Homerton, I guess, keeps you active because you have to cycle or walk into town. But yeah, and then also you have university sport too. And there's lots of the sports clubs that are very welcoming and open, like for example like lacrosse or rugby. They very much encourage beginners to come and join, and that's not to say it's just them who do that, lots of other people do as well. And also those sports run like fitness sessions as well at the sports centre, which you can show up to. So yeah, there's lots of different ways you can get involved in sport quite easily, and also just at a more basic level, it's convenience in terms of like the gym in Homerton is just where you're living, so that makes it a lot more, it just makes it so much easier to be a bit more active.
Thank you. Shala, are there any challenges or adjustments that students often face when transitioning to college life at Cambridge?
I think obviously it's the independence, because you've been used to like living with your parents, and your parents probably do all the like cooking, washing, and I think once you come to university, you're sort of left to do that by yourself. But I think that's good in a way, and I think that's like the best advice that my head of year gave to me was to actually move out from home. And it's only 3 years, and obviously you will be coming back during the holidays, but I think it really teaches you to be independent and to maybe start cooking, or like to do your own washing, to do the laundry. Yeah, so I guess I came here not knowing how to use a washing machine, and then that's one of the life skills that I've learned. So yeah.
Thank you. Lorena, for someone who switched course after their first year, was that a difficult process, and what exams did you have to do for the course you wanted to switch into?
So for me at least, it was quite easy for me to switch courses, and I think it really depends what course you've started with and which course you're going to switch into. So for example, if you're studying, I'm not sure, natural sciences, to switch into education, that might be a bit more difficult because they're very two different disciplines. For me, I was able to quite easily switch from psychology to HSPS, because in my psychology degree, I had taken 2 HSPS papers as my options. And so when I realized I wanted to do HSPS, I spoke with my DOS. I was like, I think this is the best course for me to do. And I didn't actually have to sit any exams. I just had a very chill interview with the HSPS DOS. She spoke to me. She was like, why do you want to switch degrees? Is this something you want to do? Okay, let's set like a target grade. But I didn't actually have to like do any exams to switch. And I also think it depends. I know there are other ways to switch. I know people who have done vet med or medicine, they've intercalated in their 3rd year. So they do sort of different subject, and then from there they switch into a different degree if it's related to the subject they've intercalated into. But yeah, I personally wouldn't recommend going into university thinking you're going to switch degrees, just because it can put a lot of stress on you. So I just like, it is an option, but try your best to start in a course that you like.
Oh, Lindsay, I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Thanks. Naomi, how much does student accommodation cost at Homerton, and is it catered, or do you cook for yourself, or both?
So I think it costs, I'm trying to think now. It's not, I don't know how much it costs.
Is it around 150 a week?
Yeah, it's around that. It's the cheapest one out of all of the different colleges. It is the cheapest one. It's the cheapest accommodation, I know that. Yeah, so around cooking, you have the dining, that food isn't included with the accommodation fee. So most students either go to the dining hall, and food there is really subsidized, and it's really nice as well. Or we cook for ourselves. There is no oven or freezer, but like you've got a hob, you've got the microwave. So you have to be inventive with your cooking. But it's definitely made me try different ways of cooking. Yeah, and I'm still alive, haven't got food poisoning yet, thank goodness. But I think next year you might be getting air fryers, I think. So you might be lucky with that.
That may have,
yeah,
that may not happen.
Yeah. Oh, hey, if not, learn to cook at home. Learn to cook using a hob and you'll be absolutely fine.
Thanks. A few questions for Lois. What are the assessments like? What are the essay topics like? that's ready too.
Yeah, so in terms of assessment, at least in the first and second year, you're assessed at the end of every year, and it will be a multiple choice paper in each of your modules, and it will also be an essay paper, which are done separately, like it's not all just one massive paper. And then for some subjects we'll also have a practical paper as well, so it's all quite applied. And it was, what are the assessments like, and
what are the essay topics like?
oh yeah, the essay topics. So the essay topics kind of depends on the module. They can be a bit more abstract than others. So, but it's essentially, it will be based on your lectures that you've had, and it will be like explaining a process. So for example, it'll be like explaining DNA replication and maybe then going into what the implications are for something. But the essays are quite short. They shouldn't be more than 1,000 words. So it, you know, you hear essay and you're like, oh my gosh, what, you know, that's going to be so time consuming. So, but actually they really encourage like for you to draw diagrams in them. They encourage you to kind of bullet point as well in some parts of it. So, you know, the term essay is not, you know, there's one exam that you sit for head and neck anatomy where your essays are actually like 500 words. So yeah, don't get too put off by this whole thing of essays and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. What would you say is the best way to get work experience? I feel like this might also be a question for Lois, unless other people did.
Yeah, in terms of medicine work experience, as I mentioned before, I think it can vary a lot by your area, and sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. I mean, for me, my GP, my like actual GP, let me sit in with her for 4 or 5 days. Some GPs won't like you doing that though, because obviously you're in a local area. So, you know, I have friends who went and stayed with family and worked at sat in a random GP. There's also, I mean, you're best to just email your local hospital or a few hospitals that you're able to get to, and ask if they've got programs, because you won't be the only person asking. But then there's other things like just being in a care home, volunteering a couple of hours a week. That's really important. Kind of things like that, which is something that most people can get. So yeah.
Thank you. And sorry, another one for you, Lois. It's been repeated quite a lot. So I think the person submitted it lots of times. Apart from an EPQ, what would you say is the best way to do research in year 12 for medicine, and would you say it's needed for medicine?
Yeah, I would say you definitely don't need to do any research before university. That's not what they expect at all. If you know, some people get lucky and you kind of end up doing something that's a bit more research based, but you know, they're really not expecting that from you, especially in year 12. It's really more about your interest and your own reading around the subject more than, you know, any research that you're doing. And yeah, you know, that's a kind of much better way to spend your time, rather than trying to do anything like that.
Thank you. Naomi, how have your A levels contributed to your studies now?
For my course, because I do education, we have like a sociological element. So I did sociology, psychology, and PE, and a lot of the different theories incorporated with all of them are actually in my course. So it's really good having those like prerequisites, especially psychology. And we have a whole paper attributed to psychology, learning, and human development, and it talks about like how people learn. So I think being really invested in your A levels and looking at the links between what you're studying and what you want to study in the future is really important, because for me, it could definitely, my workload is much less than someone who didn't take those subjects. But yeah, it can be really good as well. Like I didn't do geography, and yet there's quite a large portion of my course towards that, so you can learn from other people as well.
Thank you. There's only a few questions left. I'm hoping there won't be loads more coming in, but I think we'll end quite soon anyway. Charlotte, do you feel as though there is inclusivity in the community at Homerton?
Yeah, I mean, I think every college is inclusive. It's not just with Homerton, but I think Homerton especially like takes in pride for like being inclusive and being diverse. And as we've said before, there's like events where like different speakers come in and they speak. But I think every college is inclusive. So that's a good point.
Thank you. I'll just quickly answer this. Could you elaborate on the My Cambridge application? It's just, I talked about this in the last session and you'll get the recordings afterwards, but it's an additional form that Cambridge asks you to submit. There's lots of little questions, but the bit that we were mainly talking about is the option to submit an additional little personal statement that is specific to Cambridge. And there's two that are for Lois, and they're the two last. What did you do in your intercalated year, and do you have any tips for A-level chemistry?
Yeah, okay, so intercalated year, I actually did zoology, and I did, so within zoology I did development and also biochemistry modules, so it was all about like really niche animal development and also cancers and things like that. Everyone I know genuinely did something different during the intercalated year. It's actually a really nice year, but everyone really enjoys it because it's a lot more relaxed compared to the first 2 years. And yeah, you can honestly do anything. I know people who went and did engineering and then did a master's in engineering as well. So yeah, and then in terms of A-level chemistry, my tips for A-level chemistry, gosh, sorry, it was so long ago. Past papers. I think that's the tip for any, in my opinion, any, at least like science or maths A levels, just do as many past papers as possible. Yeah, and you just tend to learn the kind of algorithm that they seem to want for answers. And yeah.
Thank you so much. There's no more questions. We're going to end that here. Thank you so much to all of the students who took part, even the ones that are no longer here. And thanks so much to all of you who attended. I will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.